now return to Showdown with Iraq, an international town meeting.
Germany. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I'd just like to state to Secretary Cohen, Secretary Albright, and Mr. Berger, as a member of the United States Services in the Army, is that I wanted to let you know that I give my full support, although it is my duty to do in the United States Army, but just to let you know that I fully agree with what you need to do. Go ahead and do it. If a soldier member's life needs to be lost, let it start with mine. Because Saddam Hussein...
If neither of you has a reaction, I have a question here from a person in the audience. The White House budget for VA medicine is not sufficient to meet the needs of the current veteran population. What happens if there are large numbers of new combat disabled veterans?
First of all, let me respond with respect to the participation of our servicemen and women. You just heard in that call from Germany one young man who indicated how committed he is to carrying out the mission that is required. We have a number of people here in the audience today also who represent the United States military. Let me indicate to all of you who are here and all who are watching that we intend to take care of you, that we intend to minimize the risk to your lives, those who are willing to put it on the line for the country. There can be no guarantee that there will not be casualties on our part, as General Shelton had pointed out. But we have taken into account every contingency. We will do our level best to minimize the risk of harm. With respect to the Veterans Affairs budget, obviously that needs to be increased in terms of dealing with veterans as far as their needs, but we do not anticipate having significant losses or injuries during this particular mission. That's why it has been very carefully circumscribed in terms of the mission itself. And when the question has been raised in the past, why not just go in? I might point out that we had some 26,600 men and women who were involved in Panama trying to locate Manuel Noriega, a very tiny country, and it took days to try to track him down, and some considerable loss of life and quite a few wounded. And so this is something much more serious, and that's exactly why we have really confined our mission to reducing his capacity to intimidate his neighbors and to deliver weapons of mass destruction. That's precisely the reason, to minimize the risk to our men and women as well.
All right, we have a questioner here. Gentleman in the white shirt, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question for Secretary Albright. Why bomb Iraq when other countries have committed similar violations? Turkey, for example. Can I finish? For example, Turkey has bombed Kurdish citizens. Saudi Arabia has tortured political and religious dissidents. Why does the U.S. apply different standards of justice to these countries?
Let me say that when there are problems such as you have described, we point them out and make very clear our opposition to them. But there is no one that has done to his people or to his neighbors what Saddam Hussein has done, or what he is thinking about doing. I am very...
About Indonesia. Well, you've turned my microphone off.
That Saddam Hussein has produced weapons of mass destruction, which he's clearly not collecting for his own personal pleasure, but in order to use, and therefore he is qualitatively and quantitatively different from every brutal dictator that has appeared recently, and we are very concerned about him specifically and what his plans might be.
Thank you. My microphone is off. There we are. What do you have to say about dictators of countries like Indonesia, who we sell weapons to, yet they are slaughtering people in East Timor? What do you have to say about Israel, who is slaughtering Palestinians, who impose martial law? What do you have to say about that? Those are our allies. Why do we sell weapons to these countries? Why do we support them? Why do we bomb Iraq when it commits similar problems?
There are various examples of things that are not right in this world, and the United States is trying. I really am surprised that people feel that it is necessary to defend the rights of Saddam Hussein, when what we ought to be thinking about is how to make sure that he does not use weapons of mass destruction.
I'd like to.
Who are shouting, just a moment.
I'm not defending him in the least. What I am saying is that there needs to be consistent application of U.S. foreign policy. We cannot support people who are committing the same violations because they are political allies. That is not acceptable. We cannot violate UN resolutions when it is convenient to us. You're not answering my question, Madam Albright.
Sir, that you study carefully what American foreign policy is, what we have said exactly about the cases that you have mentioned. Every one of them have been pointed out. Every one of them we have clearly stated our policy on. And if you would like, as a former professor, I would be delighted to spend 50 minutes with you describing exactly what we are doing on those subjects.
Secretary Albright had already said she was willing to meet with some of you after the forum. Let's respect that. The more time you take shouting, the more time you take away from people who have questions. Secretary, I do have a brief follow-up, and that is on this point. There are many countries that have these biological and chemical weapons. 6 countries in the Middle East alone. You've stated why Saddam Hussein should be singled out, but it is puzzling to people to wonder why it's okay for these other countries to have biological and chemical weapons, but not.
I think that it is clear that other countries have weapons of mass destruction. It is a question of whether there is a proclivity to use them. And Saddam Hussein is a repeat offender. And I think it is very important for us to make clear that the United States and the civilized world cannot deal with somebody who is willing to use those weapons of mass destruction on his own people, not to speak of his neighbors.
Yes, sir.